Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. All aboard the hype train, though these days it's seeming more like the Bussy Express. You'll recall that I told you some while back about how to properly position yourself for a political campaign. You gotta begin your campaign at least 2 years before the actual election. That's how it works at the local level. Certainly at the statewide level, you gotta begin your campaign at least 2 years before the election, and you gotta start laying the groundwork 2 years before that. But for the presidential campaigns, you got to start running long before that. People like DeSantis and Gavin Newsom, they're setting up their campaigns now. In fact, they've actually been running for over a year and a half. And Wes Moore, he's attacking reparations, which means that he's seriously thinking about throwing his hat in the ring. And the white media's also got some notable could runs too, like Gretchen Whitmer. None of these people have done anything for black people, and that's the reason why the white media is so enthused about them, and they want you to get excited too. Now, the reason that you got so many Democrats who are throwing their hat in the ring is because they already know that J.D. Vance is not going to be stiff competition for 2028, assuming that he even runs. Not to mention the field for Democrats is about as wide open as it's going to get. So we have this week's hype cycle saying that Pete Buttigieg, according to some pollsters that you never heard of, is leading the pack of contenders for the 2028 Democratic nomination. They're not saying allegedly what it is that's supposed to be getting voters so enthused about this guy. They're just saying that he is. Of course, everybody's probably noticed by now, Buttigieg has been making a point of getting on TV ever since the Orange Man retook office. He's been doing interviews with anybody who'll talk to him. He's been trying to get his presence up online. So he's certainly been trying to raise his white media profile. This is a man who already had a damn-to-fail presidential bid once, and I think it's safe to say he's going to make at least another run at it with the white media calling him young and all that. But you know, this isn't about boosting Buttigieg. This is about sending the not-so-subtle message that whomever the nominee is in 2028, it shouldn't be Kamala Harris again. That's what this is really about. Don't say it's Kamala Harris. There's no need to put her name in there. Just go ahead and say that it's Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom. We need to move on from the failed Biden years. That's the reason why Buttigieg, who by the way was part of the Biden administration, had been making it a point to say, well, there were some ways that we could have handled the election differently. Yeah, he's doing that, but he's not catching any flack for it. That's deliberate. Though I think I should point out, as I've mentioned in the past, whenever it comes to these presidential campaigns, the person who happens to be the front runner who strikes out early, decides that they're going to go ahead and try to get their name recognition out there before everybody else, all too often that's usually the person who loses first. That's usually the first one to have to bow out of the primaries. So while Buttigieg and any of his supporters, the few that are left, might think that these white media stories saying that, oh, he's the early front runner for president, they may think that this is some sort of boon or blessing for him, history has shown that the person who the white media starts hyping up first is usually the person who comes in dead last. But glut of white media appearances aside, there's simply no groundswell behind Pete Buttigieg any more than there was in the past. He's still the former mayor of a small to middling-sized town who, for some reason that still defies all logic, somehow became a presidential candidate. Well, that's because after Trump won office, every politician from the dog catcher on up thought that they had what it took to make it to the Oval Office. If the former game show host of The Apprentice could become president, anybody could. But all the man's done at the federal level was to be Biden's choice for transportation secretary. And sure, Buttigieg didn't have a bunch of planes crashing on his watch, but nobody goes from the nation's bus driver to commander-in-chief like that. Nobody goes from a cabinet-level position on the outskirts straight to the White House. Even Hillary Clinton had to be Secretary of State before she could actually run, and even she couldn't pull it off. But of course, we all know the only reason that she was Secretary of State was because that was the deal Barack Obama had to make with the Clintons in order to get her to drop out of the race and endorse him. No one seriously believes that Pete Buttigieg is going to have throngs of people cheering for him to run for office. This smells like the white media equivalent of a confidence-building exercise. This is about getting people to think about voting, not about what they should be demanding. And you got to start that process early. Overwhelm their senses before they start looking and going, well, there's a reason why so many people stayed home last year. I guess their thinking is if you can't get people off the fence, at least get them off the couch. But the reason that we're looking at this issue for this morning's briefing is that perhaps these Democrat shills noticed how skillfully the white media has pivoted away from any mention of a black woman on the ballot at all. Their game plan didn't work out last time. They noticed that black women weren't going for the con, so they see that there's no point in pretending that Jasmine Crockett could be VP or anything, because that's going to be their fallback position. They'll go ahead and say, look at this sassy loudmouth from Texas. We know that all of you black women look at her and you see yourselves, so you might as well go ahead and give us some sort of credibility because, hey, she could be VP. At the very least, she could be a cabinet level something or other. The Biden administration was all about giving phony token positions to this or that female Negro suck-up, whether it was that Greenfield woman or Ketanji Brown or Kamala Harris, asterisk, question mark. What they thought was that black women in particular were just going to be so jolly to see someone who quote-unquote looked like them that they would completely and thoroughly overlook the fact that Biden wasn't putting anything tangible on the table. But it didn't work out that way. So now they're deciding, let's revert to type, we're not even going to pretend as if black women are supposed to be part of the mix. It's all a game, but it's one that we're meant to lose. So it's time for us to change the rules. It doesn't matter if it's Buttigieg or anyone else. If they want the black vote, then they cannot show up empty-handed. And as far as all this talk about polls are saying this, that, and the third, we've seen this trick before. I keep reminding you that when Mike Bloomberg made his damn-to-fail presidential run, at first the white media was claiming stop and frisk clearly isn't hurting his support with black voters. Black voters don't mind. Why, here's some suck-up Negro mayors like Sylvester Turner down in Houston and others. They're sitting here saying blacks for Bloomberg, all that goofy slogan crap. That's what they were saying. But then Bloomberg made the mistake of going to a black audience that wasn't so carefully curated. In this case, it was Brown Chapel AME Church in Alabama. And that black congregation stood up in front of the world and turned their backs on him. After that, a couple of days later, the white media was thrown in the towel saying, oh, well, I guess it looks like stop and frisk hurt him with the black vote after all. That's the game that they like to play. Polls don't really mean anything under white supremacy, especially not in the era of Trump. Polls basically only mean that somebody took a poll, maybe. The days of trying to paint some phony portrait of inevitability are over, especially with black voters. We've already learned that we can vote on local issues if relevant. But if a candidate wants our vote for themselves, then they have to make the case. And the case is made with cash. That's how it works when a constituency is serious about their interests. Someone comes up to you claiming they want your support for political office. In that case, they're going to have to pay back your votes through policy. That's exactly how the rich donors play the game whenever they're having their $10,000 a plate so-called fundraisers. Campaigns run on money. And if you want theirs, then they want to know exactly what it is that they're going to get in advance. And it better not be vibes, as Kamala Harris said. Democrats have been trying to pressure black voters by allowing Republicans to run roughshod over us and carry out these attacks specifically aimed at us. Social attacks, economic attacks, political attacks. And then the Democrats pretend as if they don't like any of it. And they tell us, well, you need to vote for us. But not once have Democrats said that they're going to reverse, repeal, undo, or punish all of these anti-black laws and programs that they let the Republicans carry out. Now, when it came to things like gay marriage and abortion and illegal immigration, the Democrats told those groups exactly what they were going to do about it. And then they did things. They fought to pass a national gay marriage law, and they did that during an election year. And then at the state level, they started organizing and pushing ballot initiatives to make sure that abortion would stay legal in red states. So when Democrats try to tell you, oh, there's nothing we can do about all of these laws and all of these measures and stuff that Republicans are doing, especially not in these red states, that's a lie. Democrats have no problem organizing and getting things done when they choose to. Joe Biden threw open the gates of America wide on the southern border, and the reason why was he thought that was going to be a new constituency. But it turned out it's not going to work out so easily for him. Meanwhile, they come to us empty-handed, and they got the nerve to smile in our faces. It's playing both ends against the middle. Pete Buttigieg is not going to be able to give us his aw shucks, I'm just a regular guy like you routine. That's not going to work. The garbage about whether or not he prefers Chick-fil-A and what kind of chicken sandwich he likes, that's the kind of thing that clowns like Charlemagne the Fraud and others go for. But for the black vote, that's not hitting on anything. Even after all these years, Buttigieg has still failed to answer the question that was put to him about what it was he was going to be doing regarding black voters. What was he going to be doing that's in our interest? But then again, it wasn't a failure to answer that. it was him sticking to the party line. On the rare occasion when one of these bootlicks for the white media bothered to insinuate vaguely what was Buttigieg going to do for the black vote, Buttigieg said clearly exactly what he would do. Nothing. And that being the case, that's exactly how black voters should support him and anyone else who shows up trying to claim that they're trying to get in early on the presidential campaign. And for the shills and plants in the comments section, yeah, this is exactly what it's going to be this time around too. We have not forgotten because our interests do not change. And so long as our interests go unanswered, then these politicians are going to go unsupported. That's the lesson of 2024. If these Democrats can't get the black vote, then the next Democrat presidential candidate will merely be the next loser. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Stay Positive, Ronald Waits, Alfredo Roberts, Nora Brown, and Brian Walton. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.